Hi everyone and welcome back. So in this video we're diving into one of the most controversial topics shaking up both sides of the Atlantic, the migrant crisis. Now if you think you know what's really going on, think again. You've probably heard the names Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, Douglas Murray, and now Candice Owens, each stirring the pot in their own brilliant way. But have we been fed a narrative so twisted that we can't even recognise the truth anymore? As Trump campaigns on building the wall, a phrase once labelled as racist, we're witnessing the real-world consequences of lax immigration policies, with staggering numbers of migrants flooding into the US and the UK. It begs the question, are we really just being nice by opening our doors? Are we paving the way for our social chaos? Or is there a more sinister reason going on here, e.g. the Great Reset? I know some people say this is a conspiracy theory, but is it? Look around you. Have a look, and I mean a deeper look, at what the elites are doing and saying. Watch some of the WEF videos and be careful on how they word things, and that also goes for what your government is saying. Now Candice has been very vocal, challenging the mainstream narrative and asking the hard questions we often shy away from. In today's episode we'll explore her insights and those of other thought leaders on this contentious issue. Are we risking our safety and sovereignty on the altar of political and elite correctness? The following isn't just a conversation, but a serious wake-up call.
So a very warm welcome to the show to Candice Owens. Welcome, Candice.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm pleased to be here.
Very pleased to have you on board. Now, I'd like to talk to you first. Well, a number of issues. We've got to talk about Trump. We've got to talk about Harris and the election later. But let's focus on one of the main issues around which the election campaign is revolving. And that, of course, is America's migrant crisis. You know, we have a migrant crisis here. You're well aware of that. You know, if it all goes badly, we should end up with about 35 to 40,000 illegal migrants coming across the English Channel to Britain from France this year. Now, that's bad. We also, by the way, we let in 1.1 million migrants legally. That's mad. But that's another story. So that's our migrant crisis, which we quite rightly get very worked up about. People are very angry about it here. But compared to your migrant crisis in America, that's a walk in the park, isn't it? I mean, the statistics of the number of people coming over the southern border illegally are extraordinary, aren't they? And so when Donald Trump makes this his cause célèbre in his race to the White House, that must be chiming with Americans everywhere.
Yes, it is this time around. I mean, let's not forget, he began this back when he ran in 2016. The chant was build the wall. And that was categorized by the media as something that was racist, something that was backwards. He was only saying this because he wanted America to turn back to the times of slavery. And like we've built our country on the idea of multiculturalism. You know, now the media is singing a different tune and they are recognizing what's happening, especially in cities like New York City, realizing that they're flooding the migrants into these cities and fundamentally changing the social dynamics of these cities. And so people are going, wait a second, actually what Donald Trump was saying was correct. The mainstream media apparatus was lying to me and my life is changing. Things are becoming more dangerous, increasingly more dangerous in this country. And I think the biggest realization is that the media was complicit because our government has been complicit in allowing this invasion to happen. It would take nothing for them to send troops down to defend our border. I mean, what are you paying taxes for? The whole concept of having a military is because you want to make sure that your country is going to be safer because you are giving your tax dollars to a military that's going to defend your country. We send money overseas the entire time, but we can't dedicate any of that money to the border. That lets you know that there is something purposeful and intentional going on here.
And lest we forget, of course, for the past few years, the person in charge of the southern border crisis has been Kamala Harris. Extraordinarily, yesterday. I think in the debate, she actually tried to say, no, that wasn't my job. But Joe Biden, remember him? He appointed her his border czar. Simple as that. It's her job. Now, I'm going to give you some statistics here, Candice. It's hard to get a handle on, all of them because there's so many. But for example, since January 2023, border guards have recorded 813,000 migrants coming across the southern border. In 1 month alone, December 23, 250,000 came across. And in 2023, 8,500 migrants died from drowning, vehicle accidents or violence. I mean, these statistics are horrific in themselves. I think that several people from Donald Trump's camp have suggested that the real numbers may be as high as 20 million have come across that border because Joe Biden completely dropped his guard, said that Donald Trump's policies were inhuman and so on and so forth. So the statistics are dreadful and the situation continues apace and we still have a Biden government doing nothing.
Correct, because that is their explicit goal, to do nothing and to allow as many people over the border as possible. So as far as Joe Biden is concerned, Kamala did a great job as the borders are. They want a borderless country. They want to let in as many people as possible, people that are not traced. And their goal is to then offer them handouts. Their goal is to fundamentally change our elections because, we base our drawings and our elections and the numbers are based on how many people there are, right? And so they're doing this intentionally. I think part of it is a plan, again, to impact the presidential election, to then go out to these people and to have some radical plan to make them all citizens and to allow them to vote. But at its core, there is no question that the Democrats and the left are looking to do this false idea of multiculturalism, that this is what makes America a melting pot. People have to stop saying this, okay? The reality is your country cannot survive without borders. If you don't have borders, you aren't a country, okay? And you also can't survive without some level of social cohesion. What are our shared values within a nation? That's the question you have to ask yourself. When you start bringing people in from all over the world and there is no system of checks and balances and people have different ideas, it is going to lead to a social disaster. And in my viewpoint, that's exactly what the globalists want. It is a way to almost re-enslave humanity. When we look back in the textbooks of how they were able to implement slavery in our country, one of the elements was to make sure that the slaves were constantly warring with one another, right? Yeah. And the way that you do that is to make sure that people don't have shared values. And so people have to step outside of this media guilt that's being assigned to them. You're a racist, you're backwards if you don't believe in opening your door and letting everybody in, and really take a stance, a true stand for your country and your nation and your nation's identity. You are allowed to have one.
Well, your country and our country have the same problem. Our borders are ridiculously porous. And one of the problems, one of the serious issues here in Britain, and I think it is the case in America as well, is that too many of the migrants that we let in, I mean, we embrace them. You come on over, have free money, have a free hotel, have free lawyers, have free accommodation. We give them everything. And too many of them start committing crimes. We have 10,000 foreigners in our jails. There's only about 80,000 prisoners altogether in this country, and 8 of them are migrants, they're foreigners. So Donald Trump is making much of this as well, that this influx, this invasion, this constant invasion that you have of unknown foreigners coming across your southern borders, he says many of them come to your country and they commit crime. Has he got a point?
He absolutely has a point. And again, it's the same point he made in 2016 when he notoriously said they're not sending us their best. And he was proven correct in the end. They certainly aren't sending us their best. And, we shouldn't detach this conversation, by the way, from war. I'm someone that is castigated often for being an isolationist, but we have to connect these problems, right? So when you have wars, you're creating these constant refugee crises across the world. And then you're seeing them just move these refugees into our nation. So if you're going to support war, never-ending war everywhere, you're going to at some level have to expect that those refugees from the war are going to go somewhere. And it tends to be that it's our countries. Just something that I've noticed. It tends to be that it's our countries, and we're told that we have to be the nice people and accept them. And the reality is that they're living in a place where they're used to this war-torn environment. They're used to fighting and scrapping for what they want, right? This is when it gets into, you have different values. They've had to live like this for so long. I'm not trying to paint a broad brush here. I'm not saying every single person that comes here from a war-torn place is looking to, do something awful or to commit a crime. But these are the realities. We have to have these tough conversations. And again, we cannot be fearful of allowing people to keep us quiet simply because we don't want to be called racist or xenophobic. You can call me whatever it is you want to call me. My goal as a parent is to keep my children safe, and my children are safe when our neighborhoods and our streets are safe.
Well said. I hope you don't mind me bringing up the tricky topic of Springfield, Ohio. During the debate, of course, the TV debate, the president, or the former president, Donald Trump, said they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, they're eating the pets of the people who live there. Now, I don't know the veracity of that claim. But of course, Kamala Harris did her superior act. Isn't he ridiculous? And all of the establishment, on both sides of the Atlantic, by the way, have just dismissed this. Oh, it's just Trump being Trump. Well, I'll tell you what, Candice, I haven't heard anyone properly deny that. I haven't heard any evidence to the contrary. We've heard the police, the local police said we've had no credible reports of this. The key word being credible. In other words, they took the Kamala Harris line, oh, let's just look down on this and not even take it seriously. Now, whether or not pets are being eaten, and by the way, there's a lot of reports of ducks being eaten, taken from the local ponds. Let's talk about Springfield. If you like, as a snapshot of Americans' migrant crisis. This is a community in Ohio of 58,000 people. Suddenly, under Biden's come one, come all repatriation scheme for migrants, 20,000 Haitian migrants were imposed on this community of 58,000. Guess what? There's been one hell of a lot of social trouble. So the dismissing, the laughing at Donald Trump about they're eating the dogs and the cats, I think is misplaced. He's got a point, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's telling the truth. Like I said, they always laugh at him. They always call him racist. They always call him xenophobic. And we always give it maybe a month before they start saying, oh, well, there were some credible reports. And yes, you're absolutely correct. Something that is a known fact is that prior to Donald Trump having that debate with Kamala, all of the newspapers in Springfield were reporting on the fact that people's pets were going missing, and they were attributing this to the migrants. Then suddenly Donald Trump hits the stage and says it, and the media tries to do a complete 180 and pretend that this had never been heard before. It is a fact. I've had Springfield residents email me and say this is true. And to your point about the geese, again, this goes back to what I'm saying about individuals that are growing up in Haiti. Think about the climate of Haiti, what has been going on in Haiti for so long. It's not really that crazy to imagine that they are used to having to grab an animal. If you see an animal, that's an opportunity to eat, right? We're first world, these are third world problems, grabbing an animal and saying, okay, at least now we have dinner. We don't know when we're going to see the next meal. So there is an element of this when people laugh at it and think that it's so far-fetched, that is incredibly first world. And this is our problem. We can't imagine it ever being this bad where we are. And yet it's happening very quickly. Right? Fundamentally, our environment is changing here in the West, and people, you are going to laugh until you start crying if you don't start taking these issues seriously.
Yeah, indeed. And this is, and I think what Donald Trump said, I think that was his masterstroke. While the establishment and the media elites from Washington and Los Angeles and New York and the political elites in D.C. all just take this snooty attitude and laugh at him. You can tell me this, Candice, because you know America. I think that around America, that really gelled with millions and millions of Americans. They recognised that there's something in this, and they're not laughing. And it may prove to be an electoral masterstroke by Mr. Trump.
Absolutely. And like I said, this isn't 2016 anymore. So the media doing that sort of snickering at what he says is not working anymore. We have seen how the demographics of our society are changing, how it's shifting, how the world has gotten much more dangerous and yet somehow much more expensive, and how we're constantly told that caring about ourselves and caring about our children is wrong and backwards. And people are fed up with that. Like I said, they just want to be able to afford groceries, want to be able to afford petrol, as you guys say in the UK, gasoline, and to be able to trust that you can send your kids out the door without risk of some harm being brought to them by foreigners. And that's what these people are. They are foreigners. They are not socially cohesive to America.
Yeah, well, we have many of the same problems over here.
So there you have it, another deep dive into one of the most polarizing issues of our time. We've heard from Trump and Camilla Candice and countless other voices in other debates, but the question still lingers. Who's really telling the truth? I know who I believe. Candice Owens certainly isn't afraid to challenge the mainstream narrative, and after today's conversation, neither should you be. But at the end of the day, it's up to us, you, me, all of us, to decide what kind of future we want to live in. So I'll leave you with this. Are we truly being compassionate by opening our doors without limits? Or are we playing a dangerous game with our own security and culture? The truth may be uncomfortable, but it's time to face it head on. If this conversation stirred something inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Let me know in the comments, share your thoughts, and most importantly, stay informed. Until next time, stay sharp, stay questioning, and don't let anyone tell you what to think. Decide for yourself.